Angana Sarakya Chaksurun Miritam Yana Tajmai Sri Gurave Nama Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Siyata Padakam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Sam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shibishikan Vitam Sham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nivashesa Sunivari Praskata De Sarani Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayodhira Nishta Priyashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Tamashuki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaking Nigamaka Parurgari Ramparam Shuka Makaramita Dravisamitam Pipata Bhagavatam Rasham Hariam Mahora Horashika Bhubi Bhaukam Krishna Swadam Bhagade Dhammakaniha Karonashta Dushamasha Paranako Dunodidam Tamapiyadabhishuta Vishutam Vibhosam Apyarayana Vidambiduxaram Prakahito Marajanam Sankleshanavadamusanti Nanyadam Atmanamasramunayana Granti Kaurvantiati Hitam Buddhagana Anartabharshamam Shakshad Bhakti Yogam Lokashatira Chakrishat Perishamidam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siyadvait Kadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Brett, and good morning, Rob. Transcendental Tuesday. We talked yesterday about Krishna consciousness is the elevator to go directly to the top. Yagnartat kamano nyatra lokayam kamavantara taratam kamriyam mukta sangha samacharam. The highest worship, the highest endeavor to which the human being can ascend is that which involves devotional service to Krishna, who is the source of all the demigods. He's the goal of all yogis, of all saints, of all ascetics. And so why should one indirectly raise oneself lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to the level of devotional service to the Lord when one can take advantage of the descent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the fact that he's freely giving love of God without any qualifications, only for the taking, and take the elevator up to the 100th floor. We mentioned that one of the problems about going step by step by step up 77, 80 floors is that you get tired, you lose your willpower, you lose your determination. There are distractions on the way. You may end up exiting one of the floors where there's something that appeals to you and spending whole seasons, whole lifetimes on that level, getting stuck in one place. It's time consuming, and there are many a slip between the cup and the lip. So better save time, save effort, save energy, and be under the shelter of the Lord himself and his devotional incarnation as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Success is guaranteed if you follow the process of bhakti, which is chalked out by Krishna himself. How could you not be successful with all of those things in your favor? Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Premavadayate Krishnaya Chaitanya Namane Gordse. No less a personality than Rupa Goswami, our greatest acharya. He said Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most merciful of all incarnations. You can't go wrong taking shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's taking that which is innate, that which is dormant within the heart of every living being. He's providing the fuel. He is that same Lord who resides within the heart, along with the seed of love of God and the living entity. And so, being closer than a brother, he can feed that seed of bhakti. He can encourage the soul directly. In the Mukunda Upanishad, the soul and the Supreme Soul are likened to two birds in a tree. The individual soul is the enjoyer soul, and the other bird is the super soul. The one bird, the individual soul, is enjoying the tree, the fruits of the tree, some of which are bitter and some of which are sweet. The tree is compared to this body. Now, witnessing, standing a little bit off and behind, or at least the soul has turned its back on the super soul, is the Supreme Lord. And he's poised to help us out, to give us such direction and guidance whereby we can fly out of the tree and achieve liberation from birth, death, disease, and old age. But we have to do our part. We have to pay attention. We have to some or other wean ourselves from the various fruits of the tree and turn to the super soul, who is our guide. In the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, from a previous life, this devotee found herself, and she was born. She was a man who had been very attached to her husband, and because of his attachment at the time of death to his a man who had been very attached to his wife, and because that was on his mind at the time of his death, he took his next birth as a woman in the house of Vidarbha. She was a princess named Vidarbi. She got married to a king named Malayabhaja, who fortunately was a great devotee of the Lord. And at the end of his life, Malayabhaja went with his wife into the forest to perform austerities. He would meditate and chant day after day. She would serve him in many ways. And one day she came to serve him, and she took his hand, and it was cold. He had left his body while chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It was deep in the forest. There were no other human beings around. They hadn't seen a human being perhaps in years. He was the anchor around which her life revolved, even though she did most of the tidying up and most of the physical work, and he was engaged in meditation. Still, he was her pole star. And she just felt abandoned. She felt alone for the first time in the absence of her husband. Anxiety, fear, stress, even terror began to creep around the edges of her consciousness. And in that state, a Brahmin just happened to appear, a beautiful young Brahmin, just out of the middle of nowhere. And she says, "Who are you?" And the Brahmin says, "You don't know me? How is it you don't know me? I'm your old friend. You and I have taken birth many, 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 many times. Ham so ham chitam chaya sake adbhutam shahashra parivartara. We too are like swans. We have been traveling from body to body to body. You have been the enjoyer. You have been absorbed in the body and the senses of the body, and in gratifying those senses, you've ignored me lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, but I have not ignored you. Though you have forgotten our relationship and become diverted, I never forget. I never become diverted. I'm always there for my living beings. The fact is, you are not the princess of Vidarbha. You're not this body. You're not part of this dynasty. You're not the husband of this man, nor in your previous life were you your husband, who was very devoted to you, nor were you in any of your previous lives, bottom line, part of any family or any dynasty or any country. Yashatma buddhi kunapi tridahadiki swadihi kadatradishu yatirta buddhi sadhya janisho bingisa evasha gocharaham. Those who are in ignorance, devoid of the knowledge of the soul and God conscious, think of the body as the self, think of the byproducts of the body as their relatives, think of the land from which the body sprung as worshipable. Their consciousness is no better than that of a cow or an ass. So now I've come to you. You have experienced your helplessness. Your husband is gone. There's no one to help you. And in this state of mind where you can't turn anywhere, not to family, not to friends, not to country, I've decided to intervene. I've decided to manifest myself, because whether you articulate or not, whether you specify it or whether you're focused or not, your hankering has now reached such a pitch point that I come forward. I manifest myself forward. Just like Gajendra. Gajendra was at that bleak point where lacking the back and the other pachyderms, Gajendra was alone in this danger zone. The water had turned to foam. His friends had flown, and there was no one to phone. Devoid of his fabled strength, at the end of his rope's length, Gajendra's hopes turned to the Lord, who awards protection to his devotee. So at the end of her rope's length, devoid of her famous strength, this young princess who just lost her husband sees the Lord. The Lord appears before her in her extreme circumstance of loneliness and full of anxiety. And he says, you and I are both swans. We have been together for so many lifetimes. I remember all of them. You have forgotten. Krishna said the same thing to Arjuna in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Bahuni me bhyati tani janmani vedaham savati natram veda sarotava. Krishna says to Arjuna, both you and I have taken many, many births because I don't change body, because I'm in my eternal, imperishable, spiritual body. I remember all of them. But because you are always changing a material, physical, fleshy body from one life to another. What to speak of from one lifetime to another? We're changing our body in this lifetime. Every 7 years, every cell is replaced by a new cell, dies and replaced by a new cell. We're constantly changing bodies. And because of the inexorable change of body, we're shrouded in forgetfulness. We can't even remember what we did this time yesterday, what to speak of last week, what to speak of our last lifetimes. But Krishna doesn't change body. He's in his original spiritual body. Ajopishan avyayatma, his body is unborn. His body is eternal. His body is imperishable. His body is full of all potencies. There's nothing unknown to the Lord in the original form of Shama Sundar. So he says to Arjuna, both you and I have taken many births. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O son of Kunti. The super soul is our best friend. And if we can directly access the super soul, due to the intervention and the special mercy of the spiritual master, why should we not do that? Tevidu Shwarta Gatimi Vishnu Darasi Andaya Tandere Upadidana Tevi Shadantana. Unfortunately, you won't find amongst any of the modern leaders or politicians anyone who is leading people up to the elevator, which will take you to the topmost level, which is love of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita says the whole purpose of life, we have been gifted with talents and abilities. The whole purpose of life is to turn those back in, to put those on the altar, so to speak, to use those talents and abilities to honor he from whom we come, our eternal, loving Father. Anything else is distraction. Anything else will simply prolong our sojourn in this world of birth, death, disease, and old age, which exists far, far, not only physically far, but we're far away from that in our consciousness. So why Prabhupada says take the elevator? It's very tiring. It's very prolonged. You expend a lot of energy to get a very, very little result compared to the little bit of energy you spend to get on the elevator. Before you know it, you've arrived at the top floor without even perceiving that you've gone to any trouble or exerted yourself in any unnatural, extraordinary way. Our Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come in the age of Kali Yuga. It's Krishna himself in the golden color. And it is said those who have sufficient brain substance, they will recognize the great opportunity which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, and they will take the elevator. Speaking of the elevator, and this isn't exactly related to our point, but when I was kind of searching around the database, came across this funny story about Prabhupada in connection with an elevator. Not sure who tells this story. I think it might have been Shama Sundar. It says the first, this is way back when, you remember Prabhupada went to the park in New York with a little bongo drum, little tiny bongo drum. The original pictures of Sankirtan in the United States, there's no proper madanga, just a little bongo drum. Well, this story has to do with the instance when the first madrunga, the long clay drum with a plain head, one treble head, one bass head, made of clay. It arrived to San Francisco from India. So the narrator here, which I think is Shamasunder, says he went up to Prabhupada's apartment. He went up and he on a higher floor, and he told Prabhupada that the Madunga had come, that it's downstairs in the lobby. He says, Prabhupada, his eyes open wide. First Madunga in the Western countries in all of history, most likely. And he said to go down, Prabhupada said, go down quickly and open the crate. So because this devotee had been told by Prabhupada to go down quickly, he went right out and took the elevator. The elevator descended, opened the door, let him out on the ground floor where the lobby was in the crate with the Madunga. Prabhupada was already there. Prabhupada had been so excited that while his disciple was taking the quick way, Prabhupada arrived even more quickly by descending the stairs. Prabhupada stood by while the devotee unpacked the Madunga, and then he tied his upper cloth around, his saffron cloth, around the Madunga, keeping only the plain heads exposed as a buffer, because the clay breaks very easily. Then Prabhupada sat down right there in the lobby and gave detailed instructions. He gave the first Madunga lesson in the Western world, not only how to play it, but how to take care of it very properly as well. That's just an incidental story that comes along with our theme of using, or in Prabhupada's case here, not using the elevator. Now, in this third chapter, 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Gajendra's occupied, his leg has been grasped in the jaws of the crocodile. He's not in a position to offer obeisances. When you offer obeisances, various parts of your body, in order to be in strict conformity, have to be touching the ground. 8 parts of your body, your 2 arms, your 2 legs, your 2 eyes, your head, and your heart. Now, this is the proper way to offer obeisances. You prostrate yourself flat on the ground with your arms out, just like a stick. In fact, it's called demigods, offering demigods. So obviously, Gajendra, not only being in the body of an elephant, but we have heard stories about elephants like Keshavan from Guru Vayu and others offering obeisances. Keshavan, the great elephant from Guru Vayu, when he was dying, he broke his chains. And as we discussed a few days ago, he went to the temple entrance and bowed down. He offered his obeisances to the deity within the temple. And at that moment, he left his body. Gajendra doesn't have that luxury because he's being harassed. His leg is cut, it's bleeding, it's mangled, it's mutilated. So he doesn't want to offer any more of his body to the crocodile by laying himself out in the water. Therefore, the terminology used in these introductory verses, which Gajendra offers up to the Lord, is that he's offering obeisances verbally. He can't offer obeisances by prostrating himself on the ground in the water. Rather, he's offering through the lips from the heart. He's offering through the lips from the heart. And this is what we have to do. The whole thrust of bhakti is the state of the heart. The state of the heart, when we're indisposed, when we're in extremis, a life and death situation like Gajendra, it's not so practical, doable to dot all your I's and cross your T's, do everything niyamagaha according to the rules and regulations. Krishna is not particularly concerned with the rules and regulations. Krishna is concerned with the state of our heart. Api ched saracharo bhajate manam sadareva samyak vyavsha. Even if one is accused in society of doing something abominable, if one is sincerely engaged in devotional service, he's considered properly situated. He's considered saintly. So Gajendra has got himself in a tough situation. He's drunk honey. He's intoxicated. He's been fully absorbed in sense gratification. But now Krishna is sending the crocodile as a wake-up call. And even though Gajendra is unable to offer his obeisances in the proper way, as we would do under ideal circumstances, he's offering his obeisances from his heart using his lips. What's another instance that we can recall where someone was indisposed, unable to offer their obeisances, unable to lie face down on the surface of the earth, prostrate themselves before the Lord, but who nevertheless achieved the grace of the Lord and the spiritual world? In this particular instance, though he was not able to properly offer obeisances to the Lord came and stood before him so that he was able to drink in the form of the Lord with his wide open eyes at the time of leaving his body. Tribhuvanam kamalam tamara varnam ravi karam garam dana papiyakara vijaya shuku ashtu me navadya. Bhisma Dev being shot through and through, and he was a warrior. Warriors never turn their back. He didn't receive any arrows from the back through to the front. Otherwise, if that had been the case, he might have been able to lie face down. But all the arrows came from the front through the back. So he was lying face up on a bed of arrows, therefore unable to turn around and offer obeisances with his body. But it is explained that he offered obeisances with his words. He said, may that Lord who appeared before me in the battlefield, maddened with affection for his devotee Arjuna, fixated with the need to protect and to shelter Arjuna from my arrows, appeared before me holding a chariot wheel, his body covered with dust, having in distraction left his covering cloth to one side, and with the pinpricks of my arrows sticking out of his body, he ran towards me like a lion runs towards an elephant to kill him. Harimi bahantumi bam gato toriya. Said, may that Krishna appear before me in this way. From his heart and through his lips, Bhisma offered obeisances with his body as best he could. Offering obeisances is the way of the body surrendering, giving up everything, offering itself. As it says, Ye panda pankaja stila deli vidishanam. Lord, please accept me as an atom of dust on your lotus feet. One seeks after the dust from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Uddhava is praying in the 10th canto, and he says that Renujustam parada vinde, because the dust of Vrindavan has been touched by the lotus feet of the gopis, who have given up all family connections, all pretensions to high culture, and sacrificed their reputations in the altar of Krishna by running out in the middle of night to join him in a lonely place on the full moon night of the Shraddha season, because the gopis have walked on this dust. I take that dust on my feet, and I want to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. So this is the symbolism behind offering one's obeisances. We mentioned there's a 4-point program for taking the elevator up to the highest level, which is Krishna's lotus feet. It's Manmana Bhava Mukti Madhyagi Mam Namaskaru. Become my devotee, think of me, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. So offering obeisances is an important part of devotional service, but it doesn't necessarily translate into always having 8 parts of your body flushed down on the floor, as was the case with Bhisma, as was the case with Gajendra. A third instance is that of Mother Yashoda. Krishna was playing with his friends. Previously, he would go out here and there, and he would steal food from, he would steal food from the other homes, the other houses of the gopis, and then he would enjoy that food with his friends, or he would give that food to the monkeys. And the other households in Vrindavan started complaining to Mother Yashoda, Krishna's stealing our food. So Mother Yashoda asked him, Krishna, we have nice food. We have yogurt, butter here. So please don't go here and there and steal. Just take your food here on site. So in the instance where Krishna was accused by his friends of eating dirt, he was following the order of Mother Yashoda by not going abroad and stealing the food. He was following that part of our order to take food on site, but he was eating dirt. He was eating dirt. So before, he was eating the right thing in the wrong place, but now he's eating the wrong thing in the right place. Krishna's friends, they complained, just like the gopis had complained about Krishna stealing. Now Krishna's friends were complaining about Krishna eating dirt at home, right in the courtyard of Mother Yashoda. So she confronted Krishna. She said, is this true, Krishna? Your friends are accusing you of eating dirt. And Krishna said, no, they're lying. They're lying. And in order to try to bluff Mother Yashoda, sometimes you act like with great confidence, even though you yourself are covering up something, but you bluff it out. You put on a good show, you put on a good face. So Krishna is trying to bluff Mother Yashoda. He says, they're lying. If you don't believe me, then just look in my mouth. And Krishna doesn't think that Mother Yashoda is actually going to look in his mouth. She thinks that she can bluff him. But she says, okay, all right, open your mouth. So his bluff called, Krishna opens his mouth. Mother Yashoda looks at him. She sees the whole universe. She sees millions and millions of universes, and in each universe, she sees herself looking into the mouth of Krishna. She gets all vertiginous, dizzy, disoriented. She's saying, what's going on here? Is this an illusion? Is this a spell? Did I eat some mushrooms or something? Is there some demigod playing with my head? Could it be that Krishna himself is God? Is that why I'm seeing millions and millions of universes in his mouth? And then she thinks, but what kind of a God would need me to dress him? What kind of a God would cry for milk? What kind of a God would steal yogurt from the neighbors and play pranks? What kind of a God would ask me and Nanda Maharaj to offer bedtime stories every night? So no, Krishna can't be God. He's my supreme lovable object, but this is not me looking at God. She didn't know what was going on, but she knew there was a greater power at work here, and therefore she offered her obeisances. She performed one of the 4 essential functions of devotional service, and she didn't try to figure it out. It was too far beyond her, but she just offered her obeisances to the lotus feet of her own child, Krishna. Aishwarya Shamagrasha Viryasha Gyanambanagisha Saram Bhagavan Chingana. Krishna is defined. One time Prabhupada asked his disciples, who is God, or what is God? He gave various answers. He's the destroyer, he's the controller, he's the son of Mother Yashoda, savior of his devotees. Prabhupada rejected each one as being inadequate. Finally, he quoted Parashar Muni. God is defined as that personality who has all wealth, all fame, all strength, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Gajendra is offering his obeisances by ticking off these opulences. Each one of these opulences is given to Gajendra. Gajendra gleans some aspect of each one of Krishna's opulences by the process of surrender. We are part. The leaf has every right to the nourishment which comes from the root of the tree. The leaf which is attached to the tree is automatically connected to the nourishment. It's going to be shiny, it's going to be bright, it's going to be vital, it's going to be healthy, it's going to be green, it's going to have a certain texture to it that shows it's full of life. Similarly, when we, as the parts of the Lord, connect with the source of all wealth, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation, we become effulgent, not to the same level as God, but to the level that we're capable of containing. We become effulgent. We step into our original true gem-like nature as parts and parcels of the supremely attractive personality of God. And so by way of offering obeisances in the form of prayers, Gajendra says, Krishna, thank you for Aishwarya. Thank you for the wealth of devotional service. We're not God, but when we serve God in intimacy, all of God's opulences are at the service of the servant of the Lord. Nothing is withheld. Ourselves, we're very insignificant, but when we're part of Krishna's mission, when we're instruments to accomplish what Krishna wants to accomplish in this world, there's no limit. Ananyas chintayatumam yejana tesham nitya yoga shema. Krishna says, for those engaged consistent in my devotional service, I preserve what they have and I carry what they lack, which brings us to strength. Krishna often gives us strength beyond what we're capable of. It is said sometimes that when we're at the end of our strength, we come to the beginning of Krishna's strength. This fight between Gajendra and the crocodile had been going on for 1,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. Gajendra is exhausted. He's come to the end of his strength. But what happens at the end of his strength when he's helpless and he has no one else to whom to turn? And he turns to the Lord, devoid of his fabled strength. At the end of his ropes, like Gajendra's hopes turn to the Lord who awards protection to his devotees. Krishna, you're the root of the creation, the fruit of the Vedas, the absolute truth who plays on your flute, the ever-existing youth. Your features are unlimited. You're the ingredient of all creatures, whether they have hands, claws, jaws, or paws. They're all your parts and parcels. Those who are smart engage in your devotional service with all their hearts. You guard those who never depart from the hearth of your sheltering breast. Lord, I confess I've messed up, repressed my service, failed the test, but I'm thirsty for your mercy, which is greater than my mistakes. I've heard that all it takes to awaken your protection is a single cry of helpless affection. Lord, in spite of my shame, I'm calling your name in the midst of the fight. Please reclaim me from the might of the crocodile's bite. When I'm released from the teeth of the croc, block ignorance in my life, lock me into your devotional service. Lord, let my purpose rise once again to the service. I'm knocking at your door. Please keep me close from now until evermore. And when the Lord heard the eloquent prayers of the elephant, he steered Garuda to the spot and he sheared the crocodile's head from his body with its chakra. And when the reptile lay dead and Gajendra was shed of his dread, he resumed the thread of his prayers and said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Gajendra thanks Krishna for the wealth of devotional service, for strength beyond his own capabilities. First, the Lord blessed him in a mundane way with the strength that comes from being the king of the elephants, with the strength of having wives, the strength of having other elephants serving him. He lived on the heavenly planet, so technically speaking, he mingled with the demigods. But when all that was finished, when all that ran its course and was exhausted, then he realized that his only strength was the Lord. Hiranyakashipu challenged Prahlad. I've tried to kill you so many different ways. I've killed millions of enemies. I've subjugated even the demigods. How is it that I'm unable to lay a finger on this 5-year-old boy who's always chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Prahlad says, Na kevala me bhagavataschalasam sabai balam badam pareva re mishtiram pramadya yena vashampranitam. Prahlad answers his father very humbly, Lord, my father, the strength which prevents you, the strength which counteracts all of your efforts to kill me, comes from Krishna. Your strength to defeat enemies, the strength that you're exerting to kill me, comes from Krishna. The strength of your enemies who tried to oppose you, which was insufficient, comes from Krishna. Everybody's strength of every category and every level and to every intensity originates with Krishna. There is no strength aside of Krishna. Well, that wasn't exactly what Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear, but he was soon to see a very practical demonstration of Krishna's supernatural strength. He was soon to strike the pillar out of which would come alakshito go patitampara yato nishingha chavashri nachadvya chitambara chotejisho yonu parivattamaha. It is said that when Nrsingadev emerged from the pillar, his effulgence was so bright that Hiranyakashipu had to put on sunglasses. He had to shield his eyes. He couldn't look directly in the effulgence of the Lord. And it is said that's not surprising because the Lord is the source of the light which illuminates the universe. He's the source of the sun. He entered into the dark material world at the time of creation, and he alone illuminated, just like it is he and he alone who gives all living entities their strength. So Gajendra offers his obeisances verbally by thanking the Lord for wealth, by thanking him for strength, by thanking him for knowledge. Now he's become extricated from all the entanglements of material life, how to make a living, how to keep your wives happy, how to take care and raise children. That's no longer his concern now. He's graduated from that to how can I get back home, back to Godhead. All knowledge fructifies when you come to Krishna consciousness. Bahuram jambanamate gyanavam prabhanivasade. After many, many births, one who was in knowledge accepts that Krishna is everything and worships him with all their heart. One time, Prabhupada put it this way: after millions and millions of births of getting PhDs in each and every one of them, one finally surrenders to Krishna. Gajendra is saying, thank you, Lord, because all knowledge has reached its fruition because I'm seeing you coming now on the back of Garuda. Krishna says, I am knowledge, I'm the goal of knowledge, I'm the Vedas, I'm the compiler of the Vedas. And that personality, Gajendra is seeing now with a heart of gratitude. And then finally, detachment. One of the great opulences of the Lord is detachment. How attached Gajendra had been just before all this happened, before the crocodile latched on his head. He was super attached. He was born near the Trikuta Mountain. He considered that was his homeland. He was a chest-thumping patriot, chest-thumping nationalist. He thought, the place where I was born is the best place in the universe. There's no place better than this. I remember I was born in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, which is, my parents lived in the Ligonier Valley. It's western Pennsylvania, just 4 miles off the Donegal Turnpike. Ligonier Valley had been adopted as a home of the Mellons, the Carnegies, the Mellons. Of course, very, very rich family going back to the Industrial Revolution. There was a club, a special private club there called the Rolling Rock Club, to which you were considered very lucky if you got invited to a function. And it was only super rich people who were permanent members. They had a big golf course, a big clubhouse. There were race horses. In fact, every year we would get a day off of school, our elementary school, to go to the steeplechase. We kids would go and sit in the stands and bet on various horses. So it was a very blue-blooded area, a lot of money, a lot of Ivy League graduates and very, very wealthy people. And I remember one time when I was going to go away to school in New Jersey, and my father was driving, we were driving somewhere, and my father was pitching. He said, Chris, you're going to go away to school and all, but I just want to remind you that wherever you may go in the world, this is as good as any place, this Ligonier Valley, Rolling Rock. You've got it all here. You've got wealth, you've got opulence, you've got beauty, natural beauty. You've got wealthy people who are able to be connections for you. if you get to know them and you cultivate them. So Dad made a pitch that Ligonier Valley is as good a place to live as any place else in the world. And he wasn't wrong. I didn't end up there. I think to live in a Krishna temple is even better. Ligonier Valley may be in the mode of goodness, but Krishna temples are in the spiritual world. But that same feeling, that this place where I was born, this place where I was raised, where my father and mother lived, and where they made a living, and where they built a house and farmed the land, and they had brothers and sisters, this place is the best place in the world. So Gajendra undoubtedly had those same sorts of attachments. And then he thought, of all species, the elephants are the biggest and the strongest. And of all the elephants, I have the biggest and strongest body. I'm the king of the elephants. And my wives are the most beautiful, and my children the most brilliant. So we can just see the depth, horizontally and vertically, of Gajendra's attachment. And then finally, he's offering his obeisances to the Lord by saying, in a moment, my dear Lord, out of kindness, you have taken all my sense of attachment for all of these things. In a moment, they're all divested. I've been divested of all of them, my wives, my children, my body itself, this land that I thought was worshipable. Lord, please, please, none of this has any ultimate significance. The only thing that matters is the life force within me. The body, the children, the byproducts of the body, the place where the body's taken birth, none of that has any meaning without the presence of the soul. It is the soul that animates each and every body. And when the soul is gone, the body becomes a disgusting, it smells, it starts to rot. You can't wait to get rid of it, to burn it, or to bury it, to get it out of sight. So as long as the soul's in the body is of interest. Without the soul, the body is meaningless. Now, the soul himself is meaningless without the supersoul. We talked about the two birds in the tree. The soul's life is dependent on the supersoul. The supersoul is in all bodies as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, expanded, unlimited, and the soul, each body has an individual soul, and that individual soul is conscious of the pains and pleasures of that particular body, but not of others. The supersoul is conscious of the pains and pleasures of all bodies. So as the body depends on the soul, as the body depends on the Atma depends upon the Paramatma. So Gajendra says, he says, I am not this elephant's body. I am not the byproduct of Trikuta Mountain. I am not the husband of these wives. I am not ultimately the father and grandfather of these children. I am Nitya Siddha Krishna. I'm eternal Atma. I'm eternal soul. And as such, I cannot protect myself. Neither can my wives, my family, my dynasty, neither can even the demigods. As the body is dependent on the soul is dependent on the super soul. So therefore, Lord, I'm turning to the only person who can protect me in this extreme situation, and that is you. That is you. If the glove represents the body, the hand represents the Atma, and the Paramatma represents the life, the consciousness within the body. So without the hand, the glove has no shape. It just falls shapeless and lifeless on the body. When the hand enters the glove, then the glove has shape. It seems to be alive. And yet the hand itself is alive, is moving because of the life force, the consciousness within the body. So Gajendra says, Lord, I've realized that there's only one ultimate source of protection, that we only have one ultimate friend. We only have one person to whom we need to go, not only when things are serious, not only when we're faced with the prospect of death, but we should pray to you, we should reach out to you, we should seek dependency upon you 24 hours a day. Tesham Satada Yuktanam Bhajatam Pridiptadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenapami. But there should be never any time when we are forgetful of you, unmindful of you. But we should always engage in your devotional service. Those who are smart, engage in your worship with all their hearts. You guard those who never depart from the hearth of your sheltering breast. That's our prayer today. That's how we're offering our verbal obeisances to the Lord this morning, following the footsteps of Gajendra, Bhisma, Mother Yashoda, and as Lakshmi Nrsimha points out here in the purport, also Haridas Thakur as well offered obeisances with his looks of love at the time as an old man he was departing from this mortal coil. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Going down here from top to bottom, Brent joins us on Facebook by Bobby. Rob told me before that he's driving, so he won't be able to offer any lines of poetry today. We'll miss that. Natasha joined. Hare Krishna. Namamrita. Thank you. Govinda Dev, regularly this week and last week. Rameshwar Prabhuji. Thank you very much for big heart emoji there for listening. Lakshmi Nrsimha weighs in. Sundari Priya. Lakshmi Nrsimha, he's a list man. He told me once he likes to make lists. So he's got a list of the 4 kinds of obeisances. This is very helpful and very much to the point. He says, Abhivadana is respectful obeisances touching the feet. That's one type of obeisances. You touch the feet of one being greeted and you give them respectful words. The second is Ashtanga. That's what we are referring to. The full obeisances, bowing down with 8 limbs: feet, hands, knees, chest, head, sight, voice, and mind. Then there is the third type is Panchanga, and that's bowing down with 5 parts of the body, which are the hands, the knees, the head, the voice, and the mind. And then the fourth type is Karasira Samyoga, raising one's hands to one's head as a form of obeisances. And then we can add to that the verbal obeisances that Gajendra and Bhisma offered up to the Lord, as well as Mother Yashoda. Little poetry here from Brent. You can schlep in austerity up the yogic path step by step, or you can hop in devotion by elevator right to the top. Getting kind of perky this morning, aren't you, Brent? Here's another one by Brent. You may think that your place is the best, but it will be rest from you, suddenly at death's test. We're very, very clever this morning. And again, I mentioned we don't have anything from Rob because he's indisposed. So that's pretty much it. Thanks very much, all of you, for joining me, as well as those who didn't actually appear by name in the chat section, but just hung back and listened quietly in the wings. We appreciate all categories of partners in this. We appreciate the opportunity to come on line Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in the morning hours, share some realizations, and we especially appreciate the feedback that you give. We'll wind up this week's series tomorrow, Wisdom Wednesday. Until then, please chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.